Hi, thank you for joining me for learning more about AgMpower program. When you're in the program, you're going to see net worth, operations, and marketing. AgMpower is a very complete program and it can help you plan your farm. If you understand the concepts behind AgMpower, it's going to make that job much easier. Here's a diagram of how you would do the 2008 cost of production for your farm. In this farm we have three enterprises: the grain, livestock, and the forage operation. Each one of those enterprises is going to have some net worth. Allocate the assets to different enterprises of your farm. So for example, on the grain side, all the land, buildings, equipment owned or leased for production, storage, and delivery of crops are going to be associated with the grain enterprise. The livestock net worth percentage is going to be the equipment that's used to feed and process the hay that you have in storage. It's going to include the land you need to yard the livestock but not grazing, and of course it's going to include the breeding herd itself. Now the third enterprise, its net worth is going to comprise of the equipment and the land that is owned and leased to produce and deliver the hay into storage. The process of producing the hay and having a pasture to graze on is in the forage enterprise. The livestock net worth is only going to consist of the hay once it's in storage. Now let's switch over to the operations side of the program. So on the grain side, you're going to have on your operations revenues of sales of your crop, transfers to your livestock. Of course, the expenses are going to include the direct costs of seed, fert, chem, crop insurance, and all the grain overhead. Now let's switch to the forage enterprise. The forage enterprise is going to have rent out your pasture, or you can transfer it to your livestock operation. Same thing with the hay production. You can bale all of your acres and sell the hay, or you can transfer it to your livestock operation for its feeding. Expenses is going to be associated with the direct costs of producing hay and providing grazing forage for the livestock, whether it's rented out to somebody else or to your own livestock enterprise. But this enterprise is going to have its set of overhead costs that are going to be related to the cost of making bales and keeping the pastures in shape. So now let's go over to the livestock operation. We're going to further break down the livestock operation into animal profit centers, APC for short. So the 2008 cows are going to have its own annual profit center. So the cow herd is going to have revenues and expenses. The revenues are going to be the sale of the 2008 calves. It is also going to include the value of the calves that you transfer to another enterprise. Expenses of those cows are going to include the feeding expenses and the pasture expense. Now very likely that is going to come from the forage enterprise, but we need to put a value on it just as if you were selling it to somebody else that you're not related to. And there could be other expenses. The animal profit center of cows is going to have livestock overhead. The livestock operations can have many animal profit centers going on at the same time. Let's take a look at the number of animal profit centers we can have going on in a livestock operation. The 2008 cow herd revenue would come from sales and from transfers. Now, if you have a 600-pound calf at the end of the year that you did not have at the beginning of the year, that is of value and should be credited as revenue. What we're going to do is transfer to a new animal profit center. You can move it to the 2009 background steers and background heifers. At the end of it, you can transfer that to 2010 finishing steers, or you can choose to sell them off in 2009. With the background heifers, the same thing. Sell them off, or you can transfer it to a finishing heifer or to a bred heifer animal profit center. Deciding to keep your heifers and breeding them and moving them into your 2011 cows animal profit center is a choice that you can make, but one that should be made once you understand the full costs associated with keeping that heifer all the way through to a bred cow. One more thing about animal profit centers within the livestock. The livestock enterprise only has one overhead. So when we talk about overhead, we're going to refer to cow equivalent units. When we talk about cow equivalent units, we're suggesting that holding 100 cows on the farm is more expensive than having 100 calves that you carried over from 2007. As a default, a calf is equal to 0.7 of a cow. We are suggesting that at 0.7 that 100 calves would be the equivalent of 70 cows. If you bring in custom feeders, those custom feeders, if you brought in 100, would be the equivalent of 70 cows. So I hope that explains how animal profit centers are used in AgMpower. If we were to go back now to the AgMpower program under livestock, you will see how an animal profit center is much like the grain operations, where you have revenues and expenses associated with each one of these crops. An animal profit center is the same way, with the net worth of having the cow in the first place. Then we have the revenue of that weaned calf, whether it's transferred or sold, and we have the expenses associated with that animal profit center. And there can be many animal profit centers within the livestock operation, in the same way that you can have many different crops being held within the grain operation and many different operations given in the forage. So the contribution margin for the forage operation, for the grain operation, animal profit center, what's in common with all of these is that that is the gross profit of that profit center before overhead. We have to allocate the overhead associated with each of these enterprises. Then we go over to the cash surplus profit page, how profitable each enterprise is. All of those three enterprises together will then sum up to being how profitable the farm is. I hope that explains how AgMpower works, and if you have any questions, I'd love to hear them. Thank you.